Guide brought to you by the Silver Slipper Casino. Today's episode sponsored by Dad Super Pump, Southern Building Supply, The Hook, Gulf Coast Cuisine, Oddball Tackle, Cedar Swamp Outfitters, Ocean Marine, Sports Trail Trailers, Sportsman Marine, Parker Poles, and Sport Optics.
Spent about 14 years tournament fishing, and then about 4 years ago, I decided to open my guide service. I'm literally living my dream. I love every day that I get to go to work. We've got a great group of captains down there. We've got 5 full-time guides. Captain Clay Niecase is here with me tonight. He's one of the guys that runs with us. We handle small groups, big groups. We've had up to 56 people in one day, so we can take care of whatever y'all want to do. We've got lodging available, dining, all that good stuff. We're going to talk a little bit about speckled trout, and whenever we're talking about speckled trout, it's kind of like anything else. Whatever works for me may not work perfectly for you. Everybody's got to kind of find their own way. When Miss Anita calls me and asks me to come speak on something, speckled trout is a very broad subject. It's a lot of information to try to put out there at one time. So what I've done is I've taken it and broken it down a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about the different seasons and what we look for in those different seasons, what we key in on, the baits that we're using, where we're fishing, and what the water temperatures are. As he talked about, I can't pronounce that Latin name, but they go by a lot of different names: spotted sea trout, speckled wonder, gator trout, old yellowmouth, and we just plain call them trout around our dock. The fishing seasons, if you break it down into 4 things, you've got basically your spring transition, your summer pattern, your fall transition, and your winter pattern. All of these can be successful and productive, some of them more so than others. And again, it depends on your style of fishing. You may do a lot better during the winter than I do, and I may catch more in the spring than you do. It's all about what you feel comfortable with and what you know the most about. Spring transition is one of my favorite times of the year. It's a very productive time of the year. And whenever I'm talking about spring transition, I'm talking about whenever we get water temperatures up to about 70 degrees sustained. These fish start migrating into their spring haunts or spring habitats, where they're going to start easing into that summer. While we're fishing for them, we pull up to a spot, we catch a limit in 30 minutes today. That spot tomorrow may not produce a fish. It's a here today, gone tomorrow type of fishing. You've got to really be able to adapt and move around. We do a lot of run and gun type fishing or stick and move type fishing. If we pull up and we're not doing anything in about 10 or 15, 20 minutes, we're going to move on to a different area. There's a lot of factors in the spring too. You know, this spring we had a lot of fresh water come through, moved those fish around. We had a lot of muddy water. We spent a lot of our time running around just looking for clean water. Anytime we're looking for speckled trout, the first few things that we look for is relatively clean water. Probably the most important is going to be bait. And then I always like to find moving water. If you key in on those 3 things, pretty much any time of the year, it's going to make you more successful. Just because a spot looks pretty and looks like it ought to have fish, I can tell you from experience, they won't always be there. Varying presentations and depth. Springtime fishing, they could be anywhere from a foot of water to 20 foot of water. Like I said, they're always on the move. They're moving from one spot to the next, but they are feeding up. They're getting ready to begin that spawning type pattern, the spawning that they're going to be doing during the early summer and into the summer. So they're fattening up, they're eating a lot, they're coming out of the interior marshes, the interior rivers. Late spring is whenever we start seeing a lot of the males show up first in these spawning areas. Some of the ones that I'm talking about, we focus a lot on the Louisiana marsh or the Biloxi marsh, the Flatboat area, Elapete area. You know, we'll start seeing a lot of these males showing up. One day we'll pull up and we'll catch a ton of them that are croaking. That's leading up to that full moon. I don't know if it scientifically has anything to do with it, but that's what we base a lot of it on. Those few days leading up to the full moon, those fish will start showing up in good numbers. The day of or right around the full moon, it always seems like we start catching those bigger sow female trout. Of course, the males are drumming. Sows arrive on the moon. Great time to target these fish over shell reefs. As he said, oyster reefs. Here in the Mississippi waters are man-made reefs. We do a lot over grass beds. Cat Island's got a lot of good grass beds. There's several down through the marsh that we found, and we target during these times. Hey everybody, welcome back for another great pro tip from the Fisherman's Guide, brought to you by Dad's Super Pond. Got John Falchman here with us today talking a little bit about the drop shot rig. It's a very effective rig. He's going to show you how to rig it, and more importantly, how to store it. Most people can't ever figure out what to do with that weight. Show us what we got here.
Basically what we do is just start with about 36 to a 48 inch piece of line. Go ahead and tie a weight on one side and a treble hook on the other. I'm going to take that and fold it into about half. I'm going to just do one little overhand knot. Now I'm going to give it to Ronnie to go ahead and just tie up on that right there.
Tie that straight to your main line. Now this is very effective because it keeps that bait off of the bottom if you got grass or mud, doesn't allow it to hide, or it keeps it out of the rocks if you've got structure like that on the bottom, right? One of the problems people have is not knowing what to do with that weight once you put the rod up.
Well, you got your hook keeper right here. We're going to go ahead and store that. And I just hold that line, just kind of get it tight. I take this line right here, just pull it over, drop it down, just like that. If it's not down here, it's riding in the rod holder. If we got it up here, it's a swinging object for everybody in the boat. So we want safety first on the boat. So we're just going to go ahead and hook it like that, drop it right in the rod storage, and it's safe and handy.
Everything's stowed away. You don't have to worry about anything flying around. Hey, y'all stick around. We're going to get back to fishing. We'll be right back. Once we get into the summer pattern, you really want to break that up into two different things. You've got an early summer and a late summer. Early summer, I like to call that water temps between about 70 and 85 degrees. This year we hit that probably at the beginning of May. That tends to coincide with whenever the brown shrimp are starting to come out. We had a big hatch of brown shrimp this year. Everywhere we were at in the marsh, they were popping out of the water. There were birds feeding on them, they're diving. We keyed in on a lot of oyster reefs this year during that time period. Mississippi Sound, you're looking at those man-made reefs. The oyster beds here in the Mississippi Sound. Those shrimp are looking for a place to hide, and these reefs offer that to them. Of course, the trout are going to move up around there. It's a good spot for them to ambush whatever they're going to be eating. Another thing I like to look for is areas with a lot of moving water. Everybody's heard about Elapede, everybody's heard about flatboat. You got a lot of tide flow through there. That tide's washing a lot of bait around through there, and that's what causes these fish, in my opinion, to congregate up there the way that they do. Last week we pulled up, there were thousands of birds diving each morning that we were there. A lot of bait in the water, we caught a lot of fish. Whenever these shrimp first start showing up, I like to focus on some of the lures like voodoo shrimp or some of your other shrimp type lures. We fish them under a popping cork. Anywhere from about 18 to 24 inches is going to be successful. After a couple weeks of these shrimp being there, I can't take credit for it, but I heard a guy explain it this way, and it's the best way I've ever heard it explained. If you're eating shrimp for 2 weeks solid, and tonight somebody walks in, they set a plate of shrimp down and a steak beside it, you're probably going to eat that steak. So once we're a few weeks into fishing around those shrimp, we start transitioning to like your matrix shad or your more minnow style baits, and we see, or me personally, I've seen a lot more success on that since probably about mid-May. We caught a lot more fish. We were getting more consistent bites on your soft plastics that resembled minnows.
Come on down to the Silver Slipper.
Hi, this is John from the Silver Slipper, where the casino action is always lively and fun. Now, you already know that we're passionate about our food, and I'm sure you'll be able to find your favorite table game in the newest slot games available whenever you visit us. So now we're happy to introduce our beautiful new beachside hotel with 129 spacious rooms and suites. So for great fun, food, and awesome views, come on down to the Silver Slipper.
Have a good time at the Silver Slipper.
For over 80 years, serious anglers have depended on Penn. You can too. When you get that bite of a lifetime, be confident knowing that Penn is with you. Penn, let the battle begin.
When it comes to boating, most folks want more features for less cost. And that's what Sportsman Boats is all about. With yacht caliber components, the Sportsman Boats lineup offers bay boats, center consoles, plus tournament class and open cockpit models. To find the perfect fishing machine that puts your family first, contact your nearest Sportsman Boats dealer and discover that with a Sportsman Boat, you can have it all.
Now, once we start moving into that late summer pattern, that's whenever we're talking about water temperature sustained over 80 degrees or probably 85 degrees. We're starting to get into that now. This year, we've seen sustained water temperatures higher earlier than we have in the past years. You know, a side effect of that, our triple tail showed up earlier this year. We've caught a lot of those. They were about 3 weeks earlier. I think it has a lot to do with we never got a lot of really low sustained temperatures this past winter. We had a very mild winter, so everything heated back up pretty quick. Late summer, once that water gets up and gets hot and starts heating up, you know, I tell people all the time, it's kind of like me or you. If we get out there and push mow our grass for 2 hours and you come in, you're wringing wet with sweat, you don't want to eat. You know, you just want to cool down or stay cool. So what we do is we focus in, we get out there early. Your best bite's usually going to be right around daylight and then later in the evening. You've still got opportunities to catch them during the middle of the day, but your most productive times are going to be early in the morning or late in the evening where those water temperatures aren't in that 90-degree range that you're going to have with the sun beating down on it during the middle of the day. Got it on here, get there early and go home at 8 o'clock and get in the AC. You can sit on your couch during the middle of the day and get back out there after them this afternoon. Flats and keys with deep water nearby. If you've got good channels and it shelves up, you got a good point there. We're getting into that 3 to 5 foot of water. That's some of the places that I key in on early in the mornings and in the afternoons. Again, I'm always looking for that moving water. I always like it whenever I can find a good color change. If you got some muddy water coming off of a point with some clean water coming around it, if you'll focus in on that color change, that's usually where they're going to be holding on the down current side of that because they're waiting on that bait to come to them. Some of the rigs that we use with live shrimp during the summer are Carolina rigs or drop shot rigs. That's for fishing on the bottom whenever you're in that little bit deeper water. Popping corks are going to work in that early morning in the shallower water. During this time of the year, we're kind of coming out of that croaker bite and getting into that shrimp bite. Early summer, late spring, early summer is whenever we fish the croakers. We do pretty good on those. Primarily, I always Carolina rig those. A lot of guys fish them under corks. I ain't never had a whole lot of luck with them. I've done okay with them under corks, but we'll Carolina rig them with about an 18-inch leader, about a 3/4 inch weight. During the fall, that's my second favorite time of the year. Things are cooling back down. It's getting comfortable to fish again. You're not burning up all through the day. These temps have gotten down and sustained under about 80 degrees again. These trout are starting to really actively and aggressively feed all throughout the day again. They're starting to fatten up and get ready to start moving into those interior waters, so they're eating up a little bit of everything. Again, this is coinciding with whenever the white shrimp start to show up. We're looking for areas with a lot of marsh that these white shrimp could be washing out of, and big areas of tidal movement again that are moving a lot of bait. During this time of the year, you'll get a lot of white trout and speckled trout mixed together, and this is whenever I really like to throw double rigs. We'll tie up 2 jigs, 1 line, and we spend a lot of time bringing 2 trout at a time in. You may have a white trout on the bottom, speckled trout on the top. One of the hardest things to get through to people whenever we do start throwing those double rigs, whenever you hook that first fish, if you'll just hold it, if he'll allow you to hold it, and you can keep tension, reel him really, really slow, as he's darting around, he's causing a commotion, and any other fish around there are going to look at what's going on. You've got a second bait there, and if you have enough discipline to not just reel that fish on in, a lot of times you'll end up getting that second fish on there, and you can swing them in the boat 2 at a time. Doesn't take a whole lot of time to fill up a cooler whenever you're bringing them in 2 at a time. Plastics under popping corks again. If y'all can see a pattern here, we spend a lot of time fishing under popping corks. And I think part of the reason of that, for me in particular, is a lot of my fishing is done in, let's say, 6 foot of water or less. If I'm fishing 5 foot and I've got almost a 2 foot leader, I feel like I'm covering the majority of the water column. Even if that fish is all the way on the bottom, these corks nowadays, they make a lot of racket. So, you know, if that bait's 2.5, 3 foot off the bottom, you pop this thing, it's gonna get his attention unless you're in just absolutely muddy water where he can't see anything. This is how we rig up our popping corks. About 2 foot long. I like to use an 1/8 ounce jig head on the bottom. This is actually an oddball popping cork. He weights these to get more cast out of it. And then you've got your beads. I tell people all the time, it's not love taps, it's pops. Whenever you pop this thing, you want to make it splash, you want to make a little racket with it, because it's there for a reason. It's going to get their attention. All throughout the year, one of our other favorite things are jigs, just straight on the bottom. I fish braid on all my reels, 30-pound braid. I have people ask me all the time, do you do any type of leader between your braid and your jig? Unless we're in the winter or early spring with extremely clear water clarity, no, I do not. We tie it straight to the braid because in my opinion, 80 or 90% of the year in our waters, they're stained enough to where it's not gonna make a whole lot of difference. I fish down in Florida some during the year. Down there, they've got to have that fluorocarbon. That water's so crystal clear, those fish will spook off of that braid. Here, I hadn't seen enough of a difference to make me think that you've got to have it. Another thing I do, I don't pay a whole lot of attention to the colors of the jig heads. I order every one of my jig heads just a plain silver lead because we've got that dark water. I think that big body on that plastic is what's going to get their attention. Jig head doesn't do a whole lot for my style of fishing. Once we get back into the fall, we've got those fish, they're feeding throughout the day again. You're back into that time frame where you've got the opportunity to get on a school of fish and catch a limit of fish in the middle of the day. We're still liking to get out there early, try to get on that morning bite. As the sun's coming up, it always seems like they feed a little better, but don't stay home just because you couldn't get out real early, because you can be productive in the middle of the day during this time of year again, and also, as always, in the afternoon. One of the more challenging times of the year for trout fishing for a lot of people, and it was for me too for a long time, and still is for me a lot of the time, is the wintertime fishing. Now we're talking about temperatures below 65 and staying below 65. These low temperatures, especially the lower that they get, they're going to provide you an opportunity to find large concentrations of fish in small areas. I do a lot of winter fishing down in Delacroix, Louisiana. If any of you have ever been down there, you've heard of Oak River. Oak River is some of the deepest water around. It's got some deep holes, and you'll find those fish bunched up in there. They've got cleaner, saltier water on the bottom. They've got a more constant temperature. which draws that bait into those deeper holes. That in turn is going to draw the trout into those deeper holes. Jordan River over here, Wolf River over here, I'm sure Pascagoula and all that to the east, it's all the same thing. Some of the things we look for whenever we're looking for those spots during the winter are your bends in your river, because your outside turn of that bend is going to have your deeper water. This is the time of year where I actually spend some time looking at my bottom finder, my fish finder. And as I'm easing through these areas, what I'm looking for is any kind of concentration down there. I don't know if it's fish down there or not, but I know if I see stuff down there, it's probably going to be bait. And if there's bait there, then there's going to be fish there, so I'll stop and check it out. I'll go over a lot of areas where I'm not marking anything down there, and I'll try to keep moving until I start finding something. It's not always right, but it'll save you some time a lot of times.
Don't forget to like us on Facebook and be prepared to get hooked on Hook Gulf Coast cuisine.
Hey, I'm Captain Ronnie Dino from Fisherman's Guide. Today we're here at Cedar Swamp. This is a store that carries what catches fish. For your next outing, freshwater, saltwater, inshore or offshore, Cedar Swamp's got the gear that works.
Building a new home? Build it with brick and roofing from Southern Building Supply. Come see our showroom on County Farm Road in Gulfport. We have a wide range of brick in the most popular styles and colors, and our selection of high-quality shingles can add years to the life of your new roof. Southern Building Supply offers on-site delivery of your new brick and rooftop delivery of your new shingles. We're the only locally owned roofing and brick company. Call us today, 228-539-8380. Southern Building Supply.
Come on down to the Silver Slipper.
Hi, this is John from the Silver Slipper, where the casino action is always lively and fun. Now, you already know that we're passionate about our food, and I'm sure you'll be able to find your favorite table game in the newest slot games available whenever you visit us. So now we're happy to introduce our beautiful new beachside hotel with 129 spacious rooms and suites. So for great fun, food, and awesome views, come on down to the Silver Slipper.
Have a good time at the Silver Slipper.
Just like money in your pocket, that's super fun. When you trade with us, you always get our best. Super deals are why, whether you sell or buy. We cash checks, we pay bills, we make loans like no one will, and help you keep your pockets filled. Just like money in your pocket, that's super fun.
Hey y'all, I'm Corey Hudson, owner of Hook Gulf Coast Cuisine. We're located on Davis Avenue, right here in Pass Christian. Welcome.
That is fantastic.
Don't forget to like us on Facebook and be prepared to get hooked on Hook Gulf Coast Cuisine. Hey guys, Chef Corey Hudson here again at Hook Gulf Coast Cuisine. Today we're going to be doing a Parmesan crusted speckled trout. This dish is actually Captain Ronnie's wife's favorite dish when she comes in, believe it or not being seafood. But it's basically a panko and Parmesan blend that we're going to put in a food processor. You take 1 cup of panko breadcrumbs, about a half a cup of Parmesan cheese, you blend it together till it gets nice and fine. We dredge our speckled trout and seasoned white flour into the egg again, and we're gonna batter it in the Parmesan crust. Now before you batter this fish with your panko Parmesan blend, you're gonna wanna put it through some seasoned white flour. Salt and pepper is fine, just dredge it in the white flour before you put it into the eggs. That is really gonna help the flavor in your speckled trout, your chicken, whatever you're gonna use. Every little step counts when you do a dish like this. But this dish is more about the sauce. It's a citrus beurre blanc. That's French for white butter sauce. There's a couple different ways you can make it. if you're gonna make it for a restaurant, for service, you kind of want to bulk it up a little bit, give it more volume. So there's only a few ingredients. We have 1 shallot that's finely diced, 1 cup of white wine, about 1/3 of a cup of lemon juice. And what we do, we reduce that till almost all the liquid is gone. There's a term for that, it's just French, it's au sec. So once all that liquid is gone, maybe about a tablespoon left, we're gonna put in about a cup of heavy cream. And we're gonna reduce that as well. Once that reduces by about half, it's gonna thicken up a little bit, and we're gonna put about 2 sticks of softened butter. We gotta turn the heat off, and then we're gonna add the butter, because if not, the sauce will separate and it'll break and it just will not turn out the way you want it to go. Now when you reduce a sauce with white wine, basically the main component you're doing, what you're trying to do is take all the alcohol out of it and just get the actual flavor of the grapes that release once you reduce it. And that's basically with anything else. Once you reduce it, you're just adding more flavor to it. And when you deglaze a pan, same thing with that, you're just bringing out all of the flavor in that actual dish. Now with speckled trout, it's obviously a fish that we use here on the show and here at the restaurant very often because it is a local fish, but it's probably one of the most flavorful fish in our backyard. It's a very delicate fish, so I wouldn't recommend grilling it. If you are gonna grill it, you're gonna wanna get your grill really hot so it doesn't really stick and fall apart. If you catch a nice 4-pounder, I mean, it's gonna be thicker and more dense like the amberjack or the snapper, so it'll be thicker and it'll hold up a little bit better. But I prefer just a nice saute, maybe even blacken it. You can fry it. It's good any way you cook it, but it's very fragile. You gotta be careful with it because it will fall apart, kind of like a flounder as well. We're gonna cook the fish in a regular frying pan with about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. We're gonna sear it on one side until it gets golden brown. We're gonna flip it over, pop it in the oven for about 5 minutes, and top it with a citrus beurre blanc. I preferably like it to go over sauteed spinach, a vegetable medley, something light, because again, with speckled trout, you don't want to kill it with anything heavy. You want to taste the fish, you want to bring out the flavor of the sauce, and this sauce really goes good with fish, chicken, really whatever you want to use it with. And this is my Parmesan crusted speckled trout. Hey y'all, I'm Corey Hudson, owner of Hook Gulf Coast Cuisine. We're located on Davis Avenue, right here in Pass Christian. Welcome. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and be prepared to get hooked on Hook Gulf Coast Cuisine.
The Fisherman's Guide brought to you by the Silver Slipper Casino. Today's episode sponsored by Dad Super Paw, Southern Building Supply, The Hook, Gulf Coast Cuisine, Oddball Tackle, Cedar Swamp Outfitters, Ocean Marine, Sports Trail Trailers, Sportsman Marine, Parker Poles, and Sport Optics.